I'm 35 years old, and today marks our 10th wedding anniversary. What should have been the happiest day of my life turned into a nightmare when I discovered Michael had brought his secret girlfriend to our celebration. The worst part, he introduced her as his colleague while I was already planning to introduce her to her own husband, who was waiting behind the scenes. If you're watching this from somewhere cozy, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to see how this revenge unfolds. I met Michael 11 years ago at a company holiday party. I was working for a marketing firm and he was representing one of our clients as their legal counsel. The moment our eyes locked across the room, I felt something I'd never experienced before. He was tall, confident, with dark hair and the kind of smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. Christina Parker, I introduced myself, extending my hand. Michael Thompson, he replied, his grip firm and warm. I've been looking forward to meeting you. Your campaign for Hudson Tech was brilliant. That night, we talked until the venue staff started stacking chairs around us. Our relationship progressed quickly after that. Michael was everything I'd dreamed of. Intelligent, ambitious, and attentive. He sent flowers to my office, remembered little details about things I mentioned in passing, and made me laugh like no one else could. We got married exactly 1 year after we met. The wedding was perfect, a garden ceremony with close friends and family, followed by a reception at a historic Boston hotel. I still remember my father's toast, to finding the kind of love that feels like coming home. That's exactly what Michael was to me. Home. Our life together flourished. I climbed the corporate ladder to become marketing director at one of Boston's top firms. Michael made partner at his law firm, specializing in corporate litigation. We bought a beautiful colonial house in a leafy suburb outside Boston, complete with a wraparound porch I'd always wanted, and enough space for the children we planned to have someday when our careers settled down. Our social circle consisted mainly of other professional couples, doctors, lawyers, executives. Among them were Amanda and Daniel Mitchell, who quickly became our closest friends. Amanda was a pediatrician and Daniel worked in finance. We took annual vacations together, skiing in Aspen, wine tasting in Napa beach houses on Cape Cod. Looking back, there were so many happy memories. The time Michael surprised me with a trip to Paris for my 30th birthday, our Sunday morning tradition of making pancakes together before taking long walks with coffee in hand. The pride I felt watching him win a major case that made headlines. The way he'd leave little notes in my lunch bag when he knew I had a stressful day ahead. For 9 years, I truly believed we had the perfect marriage. So when our 10th anniversary approached, I wanted to celebrate in a big way. I began planning 6 months in advance, reserving the rooftop garden at the Beacon Hotel, hiring the best caterer in town, carefully selecting a guest list of 60 of our closest friends and family. This needs to be special, I told Michael over dinner one evening. 10 years is a milestone worth celebrating. He agreed, though. Looking back, there was something off about his enthusiasm. It was the first sign. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. As the party date grew closer, I started noticing other changes. Michael began working later than usual. His phone would ding with messages and he'd turn it face down quickly. He seemed distracted during our conversations, like his mind was elsewhere. When I'd ask about his day, his answers became vague and brief. Just busy with the Westlake case, he'd say, or nothing interesting, just legal stuff you'd find boring. I told myself it was the pressure of work. His firm was handling a major corporate merger, and I knew how demanding high-profile cases could be. So I pushed my concerns aside and focused on making our anniversary celebration perfect. If only I'd paid more attention to those warning signs. Maybe I could have spared myself the humiliation that was about to come. Or maybe everything had to happen exactly as it did. The first concrete evidence that something was wrong came 3 months before our anniversary. I was using Michael's iPad to order food delivery while he was in the shower. A message notification popped up at the top of the screen. "Miss you already. Can't wait for tomorrow. S." My heart froze. I tapped on it before I could think better of it, but it opened to a login screen. The message preview was all I could see. When Michael came out of the bathroom, I casually asked, "Who's S?" He didn't miss a beat. "Sarah Goldstein, the new client I told you about. The pharmaceutical company case." His expression remained neutral, his voice steady. "She's anxious about the deposition tomorrow." I nodded, accepting his explanation. After all, why wouldn't I? In 10 years of marriage, Michael had never given me reason to doubt him, but the knot in my stomach didn't go away. Over the next few weeks, more inconsistencies appeared. Michael started taking overnight trips with little notice. "The Milwaukee client needs me there first thing," he'd say, packing a bag at 9 in the evening. "It's easier if I fly out tonight." He'd return smelling of unfamiliar perfume which he attributed to the close quarters of airplane seating. "The woman next to me practically bathed in it," he explained with an eye roll that seemed just a little too rehearsed. I found receipts for dinners at romantic restaurants on nights he'd claimed to be working late. When questioned, he said they were business dinners with clients or colleagues. "You know how this business works, Christina. Relationship building happens over food and drinks." I wanted desperately to believe him. I'd built my entire adult life around our partnership, our future together. The alternative was too painful to consider. Then one evening, I came home early from a work event that had ended sooner than expected. Michael was in his home office door, closed on the phone. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but his voice carried through the door. "I'll find a way to be there, Sophia," he said, his voice soft in a way he usually only spoke to me. "I know it's important to you. Yes, I miss you too." When he emerged 20 minutes later, I was sitting in the living room pretending to read a magazine, my heart pounding. "Who's Sophia?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Michael's expression flickered. Surprise, then composure. "New associate at the firm. Legal team just brought her on for the Westlake case. She's anxious about some research she's doing for me. She must be very dedicated if she's calling you at 8 at night, I remarked. "That's why we hired her. Ambitious, smart." He kissed the top of my head. "How was your event?" Just like that, the subject was changed and I let it happen. But that night I couldn't sleep. The name Sophia echoed in my mind. The next day, I called Amanda and invited her to lunch. We met at our favourite bistro, and after some small talk, I confided my concerns. "I think something might be going on with Michael," I admitted, stirring my untouched soup. Amanda's reaction was strange. She seemed uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact. "What makes you say that?" I told her about the messages, the late nights, the phone call. "It's probably nothing," she said too quickly. "You know how demanding his job is." "I know, but this feels different." I leaned forward. "Have you or Daniel heard anything? Has Michael mentioned someone named Sophia to you guys?" Amanda's face flushed. "No, nothing like that. Look, Christina, every marriage goes through phases. Michael adores you." Her dismissiveness only increased my suspicions, not just about Michael, but about what Amanda might know. She changed the subject abruptly, talking about her children's school activities, until our lunch ended. That evening, I did something I never thought I'd do. I downloaded a location sharing app to track Michael's phone, but when I tried to sync it, I discovered he had location services turned off, something he'd never done before. The final straw came when I found a hotel keycard in his suit pocket while doing laundry, the Ritz-Carlton, just 15 minutes from our house. Why would he need a hotel room so close to home? With shaking hands, I made a call to a private investigator whose card I'd taken from a bulletin board at my gym days earlier. I felt sick doing it, but I needed to know the truth. "I think my husband is having an affair." I said the words burning my throat as I spoke them aloud for the first time. "Can you help me find out for certain?" "I'll need some information," the investigator, a woman named Diane, replied. "And I should warn you, People usually only hire me when they already know the answer. They just need proof. Deep down, I realized she was right. I already knew. I just needed to see it with my own eyes. 3 days after hiring Diane, I received an email from her with an attachment. "Call me after you've looked," her message read. I waited until Michael left for work, then opened the file with trembling hands. The first image showed Michael and a young woman with vibrant red hair having dinner at La Voile, one of Boston's most romantic French restaurants. Their hands were intertwined across the table, his thumb stroking her wrist. In the next photo, they were leaving the restaurant, his arm around her waist, her head resting against his shoulder. The third image showed them entering the Ritz-Carlton, the same hotel whose key card I'd found. Timestamp on the photos, 7:32 p.m. the previous night when Michael had texted me he was stuck at the office preparing for tomorrow's deposition. I sank to the floor, still clutching my laptop. The physical pain was unexpected, a crushing sensation in my chest as if someone was sitting on me. I couldn't breathe properly, couldn't think clearly. The room spun around me. When I could finally move again, I called Diane. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice gentle. "I know this isn't easy." "Who is she?" My voice sounded strange, detached. "Her name is Sophia Reynolds, age 27. She works at Michael's firm as an executive assistant in the legal department, not an associate attorney as he apparently told you. I did some digging. She's been there for about a year." I closed my eyes, each detail a fresh stab. "Is there anything else I should know?" A pause. "Yes. She's married. Husband's name is Jackson Reynolds. 29, works in architectural design. They've been married just under a year." Married. The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. Not only was my husband betraying me, but they were both betraying someone else too. "Jackson Reynolds," I repeated. The name sounded vaguely familiar. "I can continue surveillance if you want more evidence," Diane offered. "No," I said firmly. "I've seen enough, but could you get me everything you can find about Jackson Reynolds' contact information, social media, anything?" After ending the call, I sat motionless, staring at the wall. Then suddenly, I remembered why Jackson's name seemed familiar. Amanda's husband, Daniel, had mentioned him several times. They played basketball together. Jackson was part of Daniel's friend circle, which overlapped with ours, and if I recalled correctly, Daniel had mentioned Jackson's wedding last year. I pulled up Facebook and searched his name. There he was, Jackson Reynolds, smiling broadly in his profile picture with his arm around a beautiful redhead, Sophia. Their wedding photos showed a happy couple on a beach at sunset, her white dress blowing in the breeze, his eyes fixed adoringly on her face. The same woman who was now sleeping with my husband. With shaking hands, I kept digging. I found their wedding announcement in the Boston Globe. Jackson Reynolds weds Sophia Garrett in intimate Cape Cod ceremony. The article mentioned they'd met 2 years ago at a charity event. He was described as a rising star at Bennett Architectural Firm, and she as executive assistant at Thompson Miller and Associates, Michael's law firm. I scrolled through more of their photos, hiking trips, holiday celebrations, building their new life together just as their marriage was being destroyed by the same affair that was destroying mine. When Diane's additional information arrived, I learned more disturbing details. According to emails and text messages she'd retrieved, Michael and Sophia had been involved for 8 months, almost their entire marriage. They'd taken trips together, carefully disguised as business travel. They had inside jokes, pet names, and even discussed a future together. In one message, Michael had written, "Someday we won't need to hide, I promise." Reading these intimate exchanges between my husband and another woman made me physically ill. I barely made it to the bathroom before vomiting. Then came the tears, heaving, gasping sobs that left me curled on the cold tile floor. Hours passed this way until finally a strange calm settled over me. The devastation was complete. My marriage as I had known and cherished it was over, but what remained was an icy determination. They thought they were so clever with their secret meetings and careful lies. Michael believed he could maintain his respectable public image while conducting his affair in the shadows. They'd been playing me for a fool for months. As I washed my face and looked at my reddened eyes in the mirror, a thought crystallized in my mind. Our anniversary party was 2 weeks away. 60 guests, including our closest friends and family, would be there to celebrate our perfect union. What better stage to reveal the truth? I picked up my phone and searched for Jackson Reynolds' contact information in the details Diane had sent me. It was time to extend a very special invitation. The days following my discovery were a blur of pain and rage interspersed with moments of eerie clarity. I moved through stages of grief like flipping through television channels. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, but never reaching acceptance. Not yet. My first impulse was to confront Michael immediately, to throw the photos in his face and demand he leave our home. But something stopped me. Perhaps it was pride, or perhaps it was the nascent idea forming in my mind. Our 10th anniversary celebration was to be held at the Beacon Hotel's rooftop garden. 60 guests, elegant dinner service, a string quartet, and a custom cake that cost more than some people's monthly rent. We'd hired a professional photographer to capture what should have been a joyous milestone. Everything was paid for, non-refundable. I decided the party would proceed as planned, but with one significant modification. The morning after receiving Diane's evidence, I called Jackson Reynolds. My heart was pounding as the phone rang. "Hello." His voice was pleasant, unaware that his world was about to shatter. "Jackson, my name is Christina Thompson. You don't know me, but our spouses know each other." "Thompson?" He sounded confused. "Are you Michael Thompson's wife? I think I've heard your name from Daniel." "Yes, that's right." I took a deep breath. "Jackson, I'm calling to invite you to a party. It's our 10th anniversary celebration 2 weeks from Saturday at the Beacon Hotel." "Oh, that's nice of you, but I think I have plans that weekend. And wouldn't Sophia be invited too? She mentioned having plans with her sister." My grip tightened on the phone. "Actually, that's why I'm calling. Your wife doesn't know I'm inviting you. It's meant to be a surprise." "A surprise?" His confusion was evident. "Yes, I think there are some things you should see, in person, about Michael and Sophia." A long pause followed. "What kind of things?" I closed my eyes. "They're having an affair, Jackson. They've been seeing each other for months. I have proof." The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear his breathing change, becoming shallow and rapid. This can't be." His voice cracked. "We've only been married a year. I'm sorry. I know this is shocking. I only found out myself yesterday." "Do you have proof?" he asked finally. "I mean real proof, because this is huge. Photos, messages, hotel receipts. It's definitive. I hired a private investigator." Another long silence. "Send it to me, please." I emailed him Diane's files while we were still on the phone. I heard the notifications ding, then silence as he looked through them. "Oh, God," he finally said, his voice hollow. "That's her. That's definitely her. I recognize the dress she's wearing. I bought it for her birthday last month." His pain was so raw, so familiar. The same knife twisting in both our hearts. "I'm sorry," I said again, meaning it. "No one deserves this." "What are you planning to do?" he asked, after composing himself. I outlined my idea for the anniversary party. At first, Jackson was hesitant, worried about public humiliation. But as we talked, his perspective shifted. "They didn't care about humiliating us privately," he reasoned. "Why should we protect their dignity now?" We spent an hour finalizing details. Jackson would arrive early and wait in a separate room. Michael would undoubtedly bring Sophia as his colleague, since several work associates would be there. The revelation would come during the toasts. After ending the call with Jackson, I felt simultaneously better and worse. Having an ally in this nightmare provided some comfort, but making the plan concrete made everything more real. That evening, I made an appointment with a therapist. I needed professional guidance to process my emotions and ensure my actions weren't solely driven by vengeance. Dr. Marshall, a compassionate woman in her 50s, listened as I poured out my story and my plan. "What do you hope to accomplish with this public revelation?" she asked, her tone neutral. "Justice," I said immediately. "They've been lying to us, making fools of us. They deserve to be exposed. And afterward, have you thought about what happens next?" I hadn't, not really. The confrontation had consumed my thoughts, not its aftermath. "I suppose I'll file for divorce," I said quietly. "Are you prepared for the range of reactions you might experience? Relief certainly, but possibly regret, more pain, even emptiness once it's done." Her questions made me pause. Was I ready for the aftermath? For dismantling the life I'd built over 10 years? For starting over alone at 35? "I don't know," I admitted, "but I know I can't continue living a lie." Dr. Marshall nodded. "Just be sure you're doing this for yourself, for your own healing, not just to hurt them back. Revenge might feel satisfying in the moment, but it rarely brings lasting peace." Her words stayed with me as I left her office. Perhaps she was right about revenge not bringing peace, but at that moment, peace wasn't my priority. Truth was. In the days that followed, I threw myself into preparation. I went to the gym daily, channeling my anger into physical exertion. I visited an upscale salon and had my hair styled differently. Warmer highlights, more volume. I bought a new dress for the party, a deep emerald that made my eyes look fierce rather than sad. I met with our photographer, and without revealing the whole truth, emphasized the importance of capturing every reaction during the toasts. "It's going to be a very special moment," I told her. "I want to remember every face in that room." All the while, I maintained a perfect facade with Michael. I discussed party details, enthusiastically asked about his day with apparent interest, and even continued our physical relationship, though each touch now made my skin crawl. The performance was exhausting but necessary. I couldn't risk him suspecting anything was amiss. Jackson and I continued our planning via secure email. He provided details about their relationship from his perspective. Sophia's unexplained absences, mysterious work events, increased emotional distance. The similarities to my experience were striking. "Do you think we can really go through with this?" he asked during one of our calls. I thought about Michael's betrayal, about the life I thought we had, about the future that had been stolen from me. "Yes," I said firmly, "we can and we will." The night before the party, I lay awake beside Michael, watching him sleep peacefully. How could he rest so easily while living such a profound lie? I wondered if he ever felt guilty, if he ever thought about the pain he was causing, or was I so insignificant to him now that my feelings didn't even register? As dawn broke, I made my final decision. There would be no turning back. The truth would finally have its day. The morning of our anniversary arrived bright and clear, a perfect October day in Boston. I woke early, my stomach in knots. Michael was still asleep beside me, his face peaceful in the soft morning light. For a moment, I allowed myself to remember how it felt to love him completely, to trust him without question. The pain of that loss hit me anew. Michael stirred and opened his eyes, smiling when he saw me watching him. "Happy anniversary, beautiful," he murmured, leaning over to kiss me. I forced myself to kiss him back, wondering if Sophia had received a similar greeting on mornings after they'd been together. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his nightstand drawer. He pulled out a small velvet box and handed it to me. Inside was a diamond bracelet, elegant, expensive, and utterly meaningless now. "It's beautiful," I lied, slipping it on my wrist. "Thank you. Only the best for my wife of 10 years. He kissed me again. "Tonight's going to be special." "Yes," I agreed, meeting his eyes. "It certainly will be." We spent the morning separately. Michael went for a run, while I had breakfast with my mother, who had flown in for the celebration. Keeping up appearances, I showed her the bracelet and spoke enthusiastically about the party preparations. My performance must have been convincing because she noticed nothing amiss. You and Michael have always been my model for a good marriage, she told me over coffee. Your father and I had our struggles, but you two make it look effortless. If only she knew how much effort it actually took. The compromises, the blind trust, and now the elaborate deception. In just a few hours, her illusions about my perfect marriage would be shattered along with my own. By 4 o'clock, I was at the Beacon Hotel checking final arrangements. The rooftop garden was transformed with white roses, twinkling lights, and elegant table settings. A string quartet was setting up in the corner. The 5-tier anniversary cake stood proudly on its own table, topped with a custom figurine of Michael and me. Jackson arrived at 5 as planned. He looked handsome in a well-tailored suit, though his eyes betrayed his anxiety. Are you ready for this? I asked as we met in a private room off the main event space. He nodded, running a hand through his dark hair. As ready as I'll ever be. How are you holding up? Functioning on adrenaline at this point, I admitted, but determined. We reviewed our plan one last time. Jackson would remain out of sight until my signal during the toasts. The hotel manager, who believed Jackson was part of a surprise entertainment element, had arranged a discreet entrance for his appearance. Guests began arriving at 6. I greeted everyone with practiced smiles and gracious thanks for coming. Amanda and Daniel were among the first to arrive, both looking unusually tense. Amanda hugged me a bit too tightly. Everything looks beautiful, Christina, she said, her eyes scanning the room nervously. Daniel could barely meet my gaze. Congratulations on 10 years, he mumbled before quickly heading to the bar. Their behaviour confirmed my suspicions. They knew, perhaps not everything, but enough. And they'd said nothing protecting Michael instead of warning me. That betrayal stung almost as much as Michael's. At 6:30, Michael arrived. Alone. For a moment, I thought he might have gotten cold feet about bringing Sophia. Then, 10 minutes later, she walked in separately. A calculated move to appear unconnected. I saw her in person for the first time. The photos hadn't done her justice. She was stunning, tall and graceful, with that vibrant red hair cascading past her shoulders. She wore a fitted blue dress that highlighted every curve. She looked young, vibrant. Everything I suddenly felt I was not. Michael intercepted her near the entrance, greeting her with the appropriate formality of a boss welcoming an employee. But I caught the lingering touch on her elbow, the private smile they shared. He led her around, introducing her to various guests as our talented new legal researcher. When he brought her to me, my heart pounded so loudly I was certain everyone could hear it. Christina, this is Sophia Reynolds from the office. She's been instrumental in the Westlake case. Sophia extended her hand, perfectly manicured nails gleaming. Congratulations on your anniversary, Mrs. Thompson. Michael speaks so highly of you. I took her hand, smiling warmly. Please call me Christina. And thank you for coming. Michael has mentioned how valuable you've been to the firm. If Michael was surprised by my friendliness towards Sophia, he hid it well. But I noticed the slight tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes darted between us, as if checking for signs of suspicion. Your husband is an amazing mentor. Sophia continued, her acting skills impressive. I've learned so much from him. I'm sure you have, I replied, maintaining my smile. We'll have to chat more later. I'd love to hear about your work. As they moved away, I caught Sophia's whispered question to Michael. She doesn't suspect anything, right? If only they knew what was coming. The evening progressed according to schedule. Dinner was served, wine flowed freely, and conversations hummed pleasantly around the tables. To anyone watching, it appeared to be the perfect anniversary celebration. Michael and I played our parts flawlessly. The happy couple, greeting guests, sharing fond memories, accepting congratulations. All the while, I watched Michael and Sophia carefully, the stolen glances, the way they maneuvered to stand near each other at the bar, the subtle brush of fingers when passing a drink. They thought they were being discreet, but their desire was painfully obvious to my newly aware eyes. At 8:30, it was time for toasts. Michael's best friend went first, sharing amusing anecdotes about our early dating days. My sister followed, speaking tearfully about the beautiful marriage we had built. With each speech extolling our perfect union, the knot in my stomach tightened. Finally, it was my turn. I stood, champagne glass in hand, and faced our guests. My eyes found Michael's, then deliberately shifted to Sophia before addressing the room. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight to celebrate 10 years of marriage, I began, my voice steady despite my racing heart. A decade of building a life together, of sharing dreams and creating memories. I paused, taking a sip of champagne to steady my nerves. They say marriage is about trust, honesty, and commitment. Values I've always held dear. I turned to Michael. Wouldn't you agree, darling? He nodded, smiling, though confusion flickered in his eyes at my intense gaze. We're fortunate to be surrounded by so many wonderful friends tonight, I continued. Some old, some new. I gestured towards Sophia, who smiled nervously. But there's one special guest who hasn't been properly introduced yet. Michael's brow furrowed slightly. I'd like to welcome someone very important to our celebration tonight, I announced, raising my voice. Someone who deserves to be here just as much as anyone else in this room. I nodded to the hotel manager who opened the side door. Jackson walked in, tall and composed, despite the circumstances. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. Everyone I'd like you to meet, Jackson Reynolds, I said clearly. Sophia's husband. The room went completely silent. Michael's face drained of colour. Sophia gasped audibly, her champagne glass slipping from her fingers and shattering on the floor. Jackson walked directly to Sophia, whose face had contorted with shock and fear. Surprise, honey, he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. I thought you were having a girls' night with your sister. Michael stepped forward, his composure cracking. Christina, what is this? Why would I invite your girlfriend's husband to our anniversary party? I finished for him, my voice ringing clear in the silent room. Perhaps for the same reason you invited your girlfriend to our anniversary party, Michael. Gasps and whispers erupted around us. Amanda covered her mouth with her hand. Daniel stared at the floor. I don't know what you're talking about, Michael attempted, but his voice wavered unconvincingly. I reached into my clutch and pulled out several printed photos, laying them on the table. These were taken 3 days ago, you and Sophia at La Voile, you and Sophia entering the Ritz-Carlton. There are more, of course. 8 months' worth, actually. Sophia had started crying, mascara streaming down her cheeks as she faced her husband. Jackson, I can explain. Explain what? Jackson's voice was ice cold. How you've been sleeping with your boss while I renovated the house for us, while I talked about starting a family. Michael grabbed my arm. Christina, we should discuss this privately. I pulled away from his grip. No more privacy, no more secrets. You brought this into our home, into our life, and now you can face the consequences publicly. Our guests stood frozen, witnessing the implosion of 2 marriages in real time. The photographer, true to her instructions, captured every reaction. How long have you known? Michael asked, his voice low. Long enough, I replied. Long enough to invite 60 of our closest friends to witness what kind of man you really are. Sophia tried to push past Jackson toward the exit, but he blocked her path. Did you ever love me? He demanded. Was any of it real? She couldn't answer through her sobs. Michael switched to damage control mode, addressing the stunned crowd. I think it's best if we end the evening here. Thank you all for coming, but we're obviously having some private issues to resolve. Private? I laughed bitterly. There's nothing private about betrayal that involves 4 people, Michael. Nothing private about the lies you've both been telling. I turned to our guests. Thank you all for coming to witness the end of my marriage. The bar will remain open, and please take some cake home. It's quite expensive and shouldn't go to waste like my last 10 years have. With that final statement, I placed my anniversary bracelet on the table. picked up my purse and walked out of the rooftop garden with my head held high. Behind me, I could hear the explosion of voices, questions, and exclamations. Michael called my name, but I didn't turn back. In the elevator down to the lobby, the composure I had maintained finally cracked. Tears streamed down my face as the reality of what had just happened, what I had just done, hit me full force. For better or worse, nothing would ever be the same again. And in that moment, despite the pain, there was also an unmistakable feeling of liberation. I returned home in a taxi, my body trembling with adrenaline and emotion. The house felt cavernous and strange, as if I were seeing it through new eyes. No longer a home, but simply a structure filled with memories I now questioned. My phone buzzed incessantly, messages from concerned friends, from my sister, from my mother. I silenced it and poured myself a generous glass of whiskey, Michael's preferred drink. It seemed fitting to toast the death of my marriage with the same spirit. The confrontation had gone according to plan, yet I felt no triumph. The hollowness inside me expanded with each passing hour. I sat in our living room surrounded by wedding photos and mementos from our life together, wondering how much of it had been genuine and how much a carefully constructed facade. Around midnight, my phone rang with Michael's ringtone. I let it go to voicemail. He called again and again. Eventually, I listened to his messages. "Christina, please pick up. We need to talk about this. What you did tonight was completely inappropriate. You humiliated me in front of everyone we know. I know you're hurt, but this isn't all black and white. There are things you don't understand." His final message, left at nearly 2 a.m, had a different tone. "I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. Please, just talk to me." Too little, too late. The next morning, I awoke on the couch, still in my emerald dress. My head throbbed from whiskey and crying. As I made coffee, Jackson called. "How are you?" he asked, his voice rough from what sounded like his own night of distress. "Existing," I answered honestly. "You, about the same." Sophia came home around 3, packed a bag and left again. Said she needed space to think. Think about what? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Whether she prefers the man she married or the man she's been cheating with. "I guess so," he sighed heavily. "Did Michael come home?" "No, and I changed the locks this morning." Around noon, Sophia herself called me, which I hadn't expected. Her voice was thick with tears. "I never meant to hurt you," she began. "And yet you did deliberately for months," I responded coldly. "What do you want Sophia to explain? Michael told me you two had an understanding that your marriage was essentially over, but you were staying together for appearances. He said you were seeing someone else too." I laughed harshly. "And you believed that the oldest line in the cheater's handbook?" "I wanted to believe it," she admitted quietly. "I loved him. I still do." Her confession stung more than I anticipated, not because she loved my husband, but because the raw honesty in her voice made it impossible to dismiss her as merely a predatory other woman. She was a real person who had made terrible choices, just as Michael had, just as we all do sometimes. "Did you ever think about me?" I asked. "About Jackson, about the pain you were causing?" "I tried not to," she whispered. "It was easier that way." After hanging up, I sat with our conversation, turning it over in my mind. The lies Michael had told her, the lies she'd chosen to believe, the intricate web of deception that had entangled all 4 of us. Later that afternoon, Amanda called. I almost didn't answer, still angry about her complicity in hiding the affair, but curiosity won out. "Christina, I don't even know what to say," she began. "Last night was... I've never seen anything like it." "How long have you known?" I asked directly. A pause. "I suspected for about 3 months. Daniel saw them together at a restaurant when he was supposed to be out of town. He told me and I didn't know what to do. You could have told me, your friend." "I know. I should have. I was afraid of breaking up your marriage if it turned out to be nothing. Instead, you protected Michael and let me be humiliated. That's not fair, she protested weakly. Daniel confronted Michael, who swore it was ending. He promised he was breaking it off with her. Another lie, I said flatly. How convenient for everyone except me. The conversation ended awkwardly, our decade-long friendship as damaged as my marriage. By evening, Michael finally appeared at the house, discovering the changed locks when his key wouldn't work. I watched through the window as he rang the doorbell repeatedly, then began pounding on the door. Christina, I know you're in there. Open the door. This is my house too. I approached the door, but didn't open it. Go away, Michael. I have nothing to say to you. Please just let me explain. What you did last night was completely out of line. His attempt to shift blame ignited my temper. I yanked the door open, keeping the security chain engaged. Out of line, you had an affair for 8 months. You brought your mistress to our anniversary party. You lied to my face every single day. And I'm out of line. His expression shifted from indignation to contrition, a transition I'd seen countless times in our marriage when he knew he was wrong but wanted forgiveness without consequences. I made a terrible mistake, he admitted, his voice dropping. I got caught up in something I couldn't control. But I love you, Christina. It's always been you. Save it, I cut him off. I've already spoken to a divorce attorney. You'll be hearing from them this week. His face hardened. You don't want to do this. A divorce will get ugly. There are things you don't know about our finances. What things? I demanded. He hesitated. I've had some issues, investments that didn't pan out, debts you don't know about. The hits kept coming. What kind of debts? The gambling kind, he admitted reluctantly. I've been trying to fix it before telling you. Let me guess. By sleeping with your assistant, was that part of your financial recovery plan? That's not fair, he snapped. The affair had nothing to do with money. Just another area of our life you've been lying about. I started to close the door. My lawyer will contact yours. Until then, stay with Sophia or at a hotel. I don't care which. Christina, please. His voice cracked. 10 years. Don't throw that away. I didn't throw it away, Michael. You did. I closed the door on his protests and sank to the floor, fresh tears streaming down my face. Not just for the affair now, but for the complete unravelling of the life I thought we had. What other secrets had he kept? What other lies had I believed? The next morning, I found divorce papers I had prepared with my lawyer on the kitchen counter and drove to Michael's office. The receptionist, who knew me well, looked uncomfortable as I asked to see him. He's in a meeting, Mrs. Thompson. This will only take a minute, I said, walking past her toward his office. I found him at his desk alone, looking haggard. He stood when I entered. Christina, I placed the envelope on his desk. Divorce papers. Given what you said about our finances, I've had my lawyer include a full financial disclosure requirement. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. He stared at the envelope. Can we at least discuss this? We're past discussion, I said firmly. Sign the papers. Give me a clean break. And if I don't, then I'll make sure every client, every partner in this firm knows exactly why your marriage ended. I'm sure they'll be interested in your ethics, especially given that you slept with a subordinate. His face flushed with anger. You're threatening my career now. I'm promising consequences for your actions. Something you've clearly managed to avoid until now. As I turned to leave, he called after me. I really did love you, Christina. All these years, that wasn't a lie. I paused at the door. Maybe, but love without respect, without honesty, without faithfulness, that's not love I want anymore. Walking out of his office that day was the first step toward my new life. A life I couldn't yet envision, but one that would be built on truth rather than illusion. The pain was still acute, the future uncertain, but beneath it all was a growing sense of strength I hadn't known I possessed. The woman who had walked into that office was still Michael Thompson's betrayed wife. The woman who walked out was simply Christina, wounded, but standing, grieving, but determined, and finally irrevocably free. 6 months after the anniversary party that ended my marriage, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the sun set over the Boston skyline. The spring air carried the scent of new beginnings, fitting for where I found myself in life. The journey to this moment had been painful, but transformative. The weeks following the confrontation were a blur of legal meetings, tearful conversations, and sleepless nights. I moved out of our house, unable to stay in a space so filled with memories, and into a modern apartment downtown closer to my office. Michael and I communicated only through lawyers. The financial disclosure revealed even worse problems than he'd hinted at. Significant gambling debts, a second mortgage on our house. I knew nothing about credit cards maxed out. Our seemingly perfect life had been built on a foundation of lies and hidden desperation. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago. I kept my car, my personal savings, and half of what remained of our joint assets after debts were settled. It was less than I'd expected after 10 years of marriage, but the freedom from deception was worth far more. Professionally, I threw myself into work, earning a promotion to Chief Marketing Officer. The increased responsibility and salary helped rebuild my financial security, but more importantly, it restored my confidence. I was good at my job. I was valued for my skills and intelligence. I could stand on my own. The emotional healing came more slowly. I joined a support group for people dealing with infidelity, where I met others navigating the same painful path. Their stories helped me understand I wasn't alone, that my feelings, the rage, the self-doubt, the persistent question of why wasn't I enough, were normal responses to profound betrayal. My therapist, Dr. Marshall, remained a lifeline throughout. Healing isn't linear, she reminded me when I'd have setbacks. Some days will feel like you're starting over. That's not failure. It's part of the process. Jackson and I stayed in touch, finding unexpected comfort in our shared experience. We met occasionally for coffee, comparing notes on our healing journeys. His divorce from Sophia had been finalized around the same time as mine from Michael. She moved to Chicago, he told me during our last meeting, started over with a clean slate. Part of me envies that ability to just walk away. I understood what he meant. Sometimes staying felt harder than leaving, facing the sympathetic glances and whispered conversations that followed me through social circles we'd once shared. Many of those friendships had shifted or dissolved entirely. Amanda made repeated attempts to reconcile, but the trust was broken. How could I confide in someone who had kept such a significant secret from me? Daniel, to his credit, had apologized sincerely for his part in the deception. I should have told you what I saw, he admitted. I convinced myself it was better to let Michael handle it, that it would hurt you less that way. I was wrong. Some friends took sides aligning with either Michael or me. Others distanced themselves from the whole situation, uncomfortable with the messiness of real life intruding on their carefully curated social world. The most surprising friendship came from an unexpected quarter. My former mother-in-law, Catherine Thompson, reached out a month after the divorce was finalized. "What my son did was inexcusable," she said over lunch. "I raised him better than that. I want you to know that while he'll always be my son, I still consider you family too, if you'll allow it." Her support meant more than I could express. As for Michael and Sophia, I heard pieces of information through the inevitable rumor mill. Their relationship had imploded within weeks of being exposed. The fantasy of their affair couldn't withstand the harsh light of reality and public scrutiny. Michael had been passed over for partner at his firm, the scandal too fresh in everyone's minds. Last I heard, he'd taken a position at a smaller firm in Providence, starting over much as I had. Sitting on my balcony that evening, I reflected on how far I'd come. The pain hadn't disappeared completely. I doubted it ever would, but it had transformed into something manageable, even instructive. I'd learned to trust my instincts, to recognize when something felt wrong rather than dismissing my concerns. I'd discovered my own resilience, surviving what once seemed unsurvivable. I'd built a new community of friends who knew the real me, not the perfect wife in a perfect marriage, but a complicated woman with scars and strength. Most importantly, I'd learned that while betrayal breaks your heart, it doesn't have to break your spirit. The revenge I'd so carefully orchestrated had provided momentary satisfaction, but the real healing came afterward, in the quiet work of rebuilding. My phone buzzed with a text from a colleague inviting me to dinner the following evening. 6 months ago, I would have declined too raw to consider opening myself to new connections. Now, I typed back an acceptance. Small steps forward. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. I thought about the woman I was a year ago, planning an anniversary celebration, blissfully unaware of the devastation coming. I felt compassion for her blind trust and shattered dreams. But I wouldn't go back to being her even if I could. The woman I am now sees more clearly, loves more cautiously, but perhaps more authentically. She knows her worth isn't determined by someone else's ability to remain faithful. The plan I'd executed at our anniversary party hadn't been about revenge, I realised now. It had been about truth, painful, necessary truth. In exposing their deception, I'd also freed myself from the weight of lies I hadn't even known I was carrying. Sometimes the most profound freedom comes only after everything falls apart, when you're forced to examine each piece and decide what's worth rebuilding and what's better left in ruins. If you're watching this and going through something similar, know that the pain does eventually subside. Trust yourself enough to face the truth, whatever it may be. Have the courage to start again. And remember that your worth isn't diminished by someone else's inability to see it. I'd appreciate if you could leave a comment about whether you've ever had to rebuild your life after a significant betrayal. What helped you heal, like, and subscribe? If this story resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that survival is possible even when it seems impossible. Thank you for being part of my healing journey, and I wish you strength on yours.